We have more breaking news from the NHL. We have another NHL trade between Tampa and Detroit. We have a massive signing in Columbus with Zach Werenski, several other signings as well. And we also got word that David Krejci will not be returning to the Boston Bruins. What are his future plans? Find that out next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have some more news from the NHL here today. We have a trade, a big signing, and several smaller ones to boot. So let's kick things off with the NHL trade that happened just a little while ago. The Detroit Red Wings and the Tampa Bay Lightning have hooked up on a deal. Of course, Steve Yzerman acquiring a player from his former team. The Red Wings have acquired Mitchell Stevens from the Lightning in exchange for a 2022 sixth-round draft pick. Of course, Yzerman would have been involved in drafting Stevens and was there for his first few years of development as well. Of course, he's another one of those players that the Lightning have had. They got several really that kind of fall into that, bottom six category that have had limited action with the Lightning over the last year or two during their Stanley Cup runs, and it's just kind of proven difficult to keep them all in the fold here with their cap crunch and everything like that going on. So it makes sense that not everybody can be staying in Tampa. So the Lightning send him to Detroit for a draft pick for a later cause, of course. And you know what? For Detroit, this is a nice little pickup. Stevens could very well be a number 3 and number 4 center for them. Decent player, had some good showings in junior, real good solid numbers in the American Hockey League as well. So we'll see if he can get more of an opportunity in Detroit and maybe play a bigger role and maybe flourish a little bit further. So small trade, but something that could really be helpful to the Red Wings as they continue to stockpile younger players to continue to get through this rebuild. Now, as I mentioned as well, we have several signings to discuss, including a massive one that came out late last night, which was Zach Werenski signing a massive extension with the Columbus Blue Jackets. It is a 6-year deal, which will pay him an average annual value of $9.58 million. That's a lot of money for Werenski. I mean, he is a very gifted offensive defenseman. He's still relatively young, in his early 20s, which is great. One of the better offensive D-men too. I think when it comes to goals scored by defensemen in the last 5 years, I think he's third, or I don't know the exact stat right off the top of my head, but he's right up there. He's pretty gifted that way. So he's getting paid even more money than his former partner Seth Jones, who was getting a massive extension in Chicago after the trade. So I think it's fair to say in Columbus that this might be a bit of an overpayment given the fact that they've had a hard time keeping players in Columbus. Of course, Werenski referenced the fact that Columbus is relatively close to where he's from, so it's not too bad that way from a personal standpoint to be close to family. He feels like he is a Blue Jacket and wants to help his team win. So if he's one of the young pieces that wants to be there and is committed to staying and being a big part of the future, then this could very well, age better than many have thought. I've seen a lot of people on social media saying this is a big overpayment, huge mistake by Columbus. I'm not entirely convinced it's a mistake. Like I said, maybe they overpaid a bit to keep a good young piece there long term, but some teams have to do that. They're at a competitive disadvantage in some areas when it either comes to taxes or just the area itself. It's hard to say why Columbus has had such a mass exodus of star players in the last number of years, but Werenski's not going to be one of those guys. I mean, there was rumors earlier in the offseason that they were taking calls on him. Not that they were pushing to trade him, but teams were inquiring because he's a real good young defenseman that obviously would generate a ton of interest should he ever hit the market. And teams were wondering with Columbus, with what they were doing, are they going to go through more of a rebuild, and are they going to even move guys like him and Laine? And they were taking calls and entertaining conversations, but obviously I think they were more interested in keeping him as long as the contract worked out, and it looks as though it worked out in a big way. I'm a little surprised in the way that they paid this because they are notoriously tough to negotiate with, and not to say they're cheap, but Columbus and Jarmo Kekalainen are they're pretty hardcore when their beliefs and when it comes to negotiating and stuff, and they just don't usually see these big kind of deals in Columbus. So it's surprising, but it's good at the same time. I think long term this could work out. He's still going to be barely 30 years old when his contract expires. So, you know what? It's not that bad a deal. If Werenski keeps playing the way he has been and continues to get better, like they obviously feel he can, this could age well. So we'll see, but it's certainly a massive deal for Werenski and Columbus, no matter what your thoughts are on this situation. Now, we do have several other smaller signings to talk about here today, including the Tampa Bay Lightning signing Alex Barré-Boulet. Of course, he, along with Stevens and several of the other guys we're talking about here, had smaller roles with the Lightning, but could prove to be bigger down the road. Of course, he was an undrafted forward that was signed, has been playing with the Lightning here a little bit. He only has like 15 games of NHL experience, but still a guy that they obviously have confidence in. I'm not sure he's ever going to be a superstar by any means, but he could be a solid bottom six player. At least that's what they're hoping. They get a 3-year deal for Barré-Boulet, $758,000. It's surprising to me to see him lock in for 3 years at that price tag. Obviously, that's a good piece of business by the Lightning and Julien Brisebois. Obviously, with that small amount, if things don't work out, it's probably easy to trade or buy out or whatever you have to do that way to move on from it. If it's not a contract you're fond of in a year or two, but really, at that price tag, for him to play a bottom six role, you could probably live with that. But I'm surprised his agent would kind of, encourage him to agree to that. You think maybe another 1-year deal would have been better, get more of an opportunity with all the players leaving Tampa because of the cap. I mean, they lost their entire third line with Gaudreau, Gord, and Coleman all out the door. I mean, obviously Stevens gets traded, so even other members of the bottom six aren't staying too. So, he could get a bigger role this year. So we'll see. So interesting to see him lock in for that long at that kind of a small salary. But at the end of the day, possible good deal here for Tampa at the very least. And they've also signed young defenseman Cal Foote, who gets a 2-year deal on a one-way contract. So he should be a part of the regular lineup for the Lightning moving forward. He gets $850,000 for the next 2 years. And then from there, if he continues to progress, then I likely would imagine he'll get a good bridge contract after that at a much higher value. Now, we do need to pause for a moment and acknowledge our channel sponsor, Manscaped. Top Shelf Hockey is proud to be sponsored by Manscaped. Of course, with Manscaped, we have a special offer here for all Top Shelf Hockey viewers where you can get 20% off and free shipping on all orders at manscaped.com. Now, of course, Manscaped just launched a brand new Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is a fantastic product. They've taken the level up here, even again with the skin-safe replaceable blades. It's waterproof, it's wireless charging, has a travel lock on it, as well as a nice light so you don't miss what you're doing. So certainly a terrific product. Now, many people associate Manscaped with their trimmers, which is certainly kind of their top product, but they do have a lot of other great options as well, including what they call the Weed Whacker, which is another trimmer for your ears and nose. And they have a variety of deodorants and sprays as well, which also keep you fresh and are terrific as well. So certainly Manscaped has a lot to offer, and we certainly highly recommend all of their products. So check out manscaped.com and use promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. Thanks very much for watching that promotional video. I do greatly appreciate it. Now, besides signing Zach Werenski, there was also news yesterday on Jake Bean getting an extension with Columbus after they acquired him from the Hurricanes. He was a restricted free agent needing a new deal, and he gets a 3-year contract valued at $2.3 million. So with all the deals they've made by extending Werenski, they get Jake Bean, they get Adam Boqvist in the Seth Jones trade. I do think we're going to see a whole different revitalized blue line here for Columbus. I mean, they do need to add a different dynamic back there as well. They don't have a lot in the way of like size and strength and that stuff at this point, but we'll see what else they do. But they at least have some good young D they kind of build around here, and that's a pretty good contract for Bean, who should get finally at this stage. He's really put in more than enough of his time in the minors to really become a full-time NHL player, in my opinion. Toronto Maple Leafs have signed forward Pavel Gogolev, who's 21 years old. He was an undrafted forward signed last year, who got on an AHL deal, played a bunch of games with the Marlies. Now he gets his full NHL ELC, so standard entry-level contract for him, but another young forward to add into the mix here for the Maple Leafs as they head to the fall. I know right now this team's going to look a fair bit different. They have a lot of different guys they've brought in here for the bottom six forward roles, so we'll see which guys stick and who ends up spending some more time in the Marlies. But at least this guy will be waivers exempt, so if he needs to go down to the Marlies to continue to develop, then that's certainly not an issue. The Penguins have signed forward Danton Heinen to a 1-year deal valued at $1.1 million. He was slated to be an RFA with the Anaheim Ducks, and they chose not to qualify him. He formerly of the Boston Bruins is where he started his career and played the first few seasons. Goes to Anaheim, doesn't get qualified. Now he's with Pittsburgh. Now, to me, that's a little bit not over much of a payment, but I'm surprised he got $1.1 million given what Anaheim was due to pay him. But at the same time, the Penguins obviously view him as a decent middle six to bottom six kind of option for them. So it's a one-year deal, not much risk involved, and we'll see how Heine works out with Pittsburgh. The Minnesota Wild add another defenseman. They add veteran guy John Merrill on a one-year deal at $850,000. Of course, he played with Detroit last year, got traded to Montreal, where he finished the season and had part of that playoff run with the Habs all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. So Merrill will be able to slot in with the Wild, likely in a third pair role. I would imagine this is he's kind of bounced around a lot here in recent years. He formerly of New Jersey, went to Vegas, off to Detroit, to Montreal, now to Minnesota. So the journeyman defenseman, who's 29 years old, will continue that with Minnesota and see if he can find a fit. The New York Rangers have extended young forward Philip Hedl on a 2-year contract extension valued at $2.3 million. At this point, it's hard to say what Hedl is with the Rangers. I think he's likely going to be a winger longer term than a center, but I know they've kind of had hopes he could maybe be a top 2 or 3 center, but not looking like it's projecting that way. Based on this income, I would say they probably do view him playing more so on the wing in that regard. And of course, we saw the Rangers, of course, acquire Ryan Reeves last night, which we have a video on the channel discussing that situation. Not a huge shocker that they added some more muscle, but they went out and got the biggest guy in the league when it comes to, as far as intimidation and fights and that stuff goes. If there's nobody better really to combat Tom Wilson, if that's really their intent. But it just goes to show how much they've been thinking about that Tom Wilson situation since it happened near the end of last season with the Capitals. So should be interesting to see those two teams go head-to-head here next season. The Detroit Red Wings re-signed defenseman Luke Witkowski. He gets a 2-year, 2-way deal at $850,000. Obviously, former Red Wing as well, Darren Helm leaves the organization and signs a 1-year, $1 million contract with the Avalanche. Of course, he was there a long time, finally became a free agent after his long-term deal has expired, and he'll go to the Avalanche. Obviously, they lost a guy like Pierre Bellemare to free agency, who they're going to have trouble signing, and they obviously got him as basically sort of like a replacement. He can do a similar type of role, very versatile. He can play center or wing. Still has decent wheels for his age. I was always known as a really good skater, so we'll see if he can play a bottom 6 role with the Avalanche. The Dallas Stars brought in veteran forward Michael Raffl on a 1-year deal as well, valued at $1.1 million. A long-time Philadelphia Flyer, recently played with the Capitals, and now he moves on to the Dallas Stars. The Ottawa Senators have brought in a couple of forwards as well on 2-way deals to compete for possible bottom 6 spots or to kind of bulk up their AHL team. They brought in Cole Sherwood, formerly of the Blue Jackets, and they brought in Pontus Aberg, who's played with a variety of NHL teams, but most recently came back from Europe. They both said to get 2-way deals. NHL value will be $750K when they do get those opportunities, assuming they get a chance to play NHL games. To me, they likely don't stand a great chance to make their roster, but it could be good call-up options who do have some NHL experience. Former Vancouver Canuck Jalen Chatfield has moved on through free agency. Not a real surprise here with the amount of other defensemen the Canucks have signed here recently, but he goes over to Carolina on a 1-year, 2-way deal, also valued at $750 at the NHL level. So as I mentioned as well, David Krejci has announced that he's not returning to the NHL and rejoining the Boston Bruins. So there was a word early on from NHL insiders in the last few days leading into the free agent frenzy that they were expecting him to re-sign a 1-year deal. Maybe that information wasn't accurate, but at the end of the day here, he's opted to return home to the Czech Republic. He put out a long letter to Bruins fans that was released through the Boston Bruins social media accounts just earlier today, explaining that he will always be a Boston Bruin, but he wants to go back to the Czech Republic, and he wants his children to be able to play. He wants his young family to be able to spend more time and build relationships with a lot of family over there that they have not been able to really see as much, and that's obviously very important. So he said he's not going to be a stranger. He will return at some point to the Garden, obviously likely to just attend games. He might do something in the future with the Bruins. It's really hard to say, but obviously, as we talked about before with their other moves they've made, I kind of think that they were anticipating this because the other moves just didn't really leave any salary cap space to bring Krejci in. But I still think they're likely going to be making a move or two just because they do have a lot of forwards even without him in the lineup. But he was their highest paid player. He was there for a long time. A real solid player, consistent for them for a really long time. And I'm sure the Bruins will certainly miss David Krejci, but we'll certainly see if he ever returns to the NHL. It's really hard to say what happens. He didn't announce his retirement. He just said he was heading home to the Czech Republic for now. So we'll see what happens and see if there's ever any future hockey left in this player in the NHL or not. So that is all your news for now between the trade and all the latest signings. So of course, stay tuned. There should be another video coming to the channel here a little bit later today once we have some more news to talk about. There could still possibly be a lot more big names moved through the trade market. Lots of guys that are still waiting for that to happen. Some decent free agents that are still available as well. So stay tuned to Top Shelf Hockey. We'll keep you all up to date with all the latest news on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.